Ms. Jones, you taught at Amherst County Training School.
At the training school.
At the training school, and what grade did you teach?
I taught only the first grade.
Only the primary school, but you taught prior to coming to Amherst County Training School.
Yes, I taught.
In the county of Amherst.
I taught in the county of Amherst and up at Monroe, which if you had come around this way, you would pass where it was, but it has fallen because it was there just 2 years before
they consolidated.
Before I started teaching there, and I taught there 20 years.
And that was Rocky
Seat.
Rocky Seat School that went from grades 1
to 7
through 7. Okay. And how did you get to school?
Walked.
You walked. You were close enough.
But I don't know how close it was. Sometimes they would bring me time to time.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that close. Maybe 3 miles.
3 miles.
But I didn't mind it because I like to walk.
Well, good.
And the fact of the matter, I like to run in those days. I did run. I could run very, very fast.
Yes.
And I could run, and they was the only thing I couldn't do. I could not stand going foot logs. But other than that, I could do it. I didn't mind it.
Well, great.
And I would walk, sing and walk.
Well, great.
And run, jump a fence.
Now, what subjects did you teach?
I taught first grade.
Reading,
writing, arithmetic.
Yeah, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Okay, that's the basics.
That's the basics.
And what was the age of your students?
Well, they were 6-year-olds.
They were all 6-year-olds?
No, sometimes they were more than 6 years old.
All right.
See, there's a repeat, sometimes.
Yes.
But they didn't like it. But when I started first, you see, they didn't like that repetition. They didn't care about it. They wanted you to pass them whether or not. I didn't do much of that.
Right.
When I passed you
had mastered the material. You're saying when you passed them.
The right vote.
Yes.
Yes.
You were telling me a little earlier at the time of integration here in Amherst County that you did try to do some work with the students in preparing them.
Yes.
For what they might encounter.
Yes, I did that because I did that because I wanted them to be able to know that get the right standing. That's what the right foundation. Mm-hmm. So that when they got in there, they'd know that I was schooled at where we were, and they were there to learn. And what you do, you just get that done, and get that done, and that's what they did.
Yeah.
And I had some very, very good students from there. They became good students at the other school, and they were smart for me. But when they went on up, but I say, well, one thing about them, they had good foundation.
Right.
I was going to make sure. Did I make sure?
Yeah.
Unless we have a big setback, that kind of school will never come back. And I think there was something important about it. There was something important about making fires, being careful. Something important about the games we played. I don't know. When I think about that schoolroom, I think about a warm, cozy little place with my children.
We've come a long way.
Now, when
compared to what we went through.
Now, when you say we, you mean
all the people I stay acquainted with, the Monacan people. Through the years, we've had our rough spots, but the Lord has always got us through it. And I guess that every day I see that He works with us. Has worked with us all these years, and He still gets us over the hurdles, takes us through.
Can you
remind us where we've been, but we're a whole lot better today for it. And a lot of things people seem to think, well, why did I go through this or why did I go through that? And at one time I was asking the same question, Lord, why are we doing this? Why are we going through this? But today I know, because we had to learn and we had to grow also. And you had to grow up to have respect for people no matter which way they treated you. That you still had to have respect and get along with people to be able to make it in this world. And so I think God has been there and showed us the way so many times, and He's picked us up and wiped us off. And like with this federal recognition, we haven't got it yet, but the Lord ain't said no either. So we just keep fighting, keep holding on, and that one day it'll come true. We've got that state recognition. That finally came through. Worked 5, 6, 7 years on it, and that finally came through. So I'm been a many year for federal recognition, but that's okay. We still got to learn too, and we got to, it's things we got to make sure we are prepared for with this federal recognition, and make sure we're willing to share and help each other in it, because that's the only way we're going to make it. And it's the only way we're going to get federal recognition is all of us working together. It ain't going to work with one pulling one way and one pulling another. We need to come together. And when we come together like we're supposed to be, the good Lord will see that we have that federal recognition.
In the 60s, their amendment was passed to grant extended voting rights. Did you encourage your daughters to vote at that time?
Yes, I encouraged all of them to vote because I thought it was necessary.
Now, did you say anything special for your daughters versus your sons, since you had 3 of each, about voting? What would you say to your daughters in specific about voting?
Well, I thought it was right to vote and, get who they really wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So we needed space, and in comes the president, Elvira, as just talking to someone here at the museum about, well, let's see how we can help as the Women's Club of Amherst. And they did, and we celebrated that back in May of last year. The Women's Club, they took the reins and just went. So it was the Women's Club that pulled all of this together.
And I was really the museum board agreeing to go on the note the rest of the way.
Yeah. So it was just an incredible, experience for them to get us up and moving. And then the grounds, I'm not sure what year they started, but it was with the Women's Club at first, joined with the Village Garden Club, started doing the landscape around here, and the Garden Club has continued to this very day of, switching out plants. It's always beautiful. We always get compliments from the public who visit, like, oh my goodness, who does your lawn?
I think Douwina was actually active on behalf of both the Women's Club and the Garden Club in getting the Old Dominion Job Corps involved.
Well, what happened, we were deadheading the flowers, and I said, oh, the bricks, throwing it back here, what a mess. And I walked around and no path. And we had a speaker of Old Dominion Stone people. And they were training boys free to lay bricks. Ooh, free. That opened my ears. And then we had a meeting with the board of the museum, and 2 companies, a company with free or paid brick, and I had a meeting with the board, and we said, well, what do you want? And they asked for the free brick. So that's another thing. So we had the Old Dominion Job Corps and their boys fixing the whole path around the museum down to Main Street. I said, this at least should be done, and it's done. All free.
And Senator John Warner. And
Well,
Chuck
now I
Wall.
hear there's a story about
There's a
Senator
story
John
about
Warner.
Senator Warner.
Wally, tell us about Senator John Warner in the kitchen.
One night I was in the kitchen just carrying on, and this man stepped in the kitchen. He spoke, and I spoke. He said, well, I told who I were. And he said, oh, I got to try your roast beef. I said, wait a minute, let me get you a napkin. He said, oh, no, your apron just fine. He took my apron and wiped his hand and wiped his mouth. And Lord me, I said, where is your wife at tonight? I won't see her. He said, well, why she couldn't come with me tonight. That's when he was married to Miss Taylor. Yeah. I said, she couldn't come tonight.
And who was Miss Taylor?
Liz Taylor.
Liz Taylor.
That was his
Elizabeth
wife.
Taylor, right?
When you told him your name.
I told him my name, that's right. And he sent me a picture.
Oh,
I got that picture at the house now somewhere.
See, Wally was named for Wallace Simpson. And she told him that.
That's right, I was named Wally.
And he said, well, she was a visitor in my home at one time.
And the kids wanted to learn. They were very competitive with each other. And we would tutor them after school and sponsor science. We go competitive in preparing them for science fairs, which they did well in.
In addition to all of the new extracurricular programs offered, Central High continued to recruit students for an old summer work program that had been in place at the Amherst Training School and Madison Heights Colony Road. With their parents' permission, students would go to Connecticut to work in the tobacco fields. The money they earned from their summer work often went towards their first cars, college, or back home to help their family.
Outside of Hartford, Connecticut, they grow cigar tobacco, and they needed labor. So I was like a migrant farmer to a certain extent, where you're going someplace to help them do what they did. So I did that for 3 years.
And what did you do in Connecticut?
I didn't pick tobacco. The boys picked tobacco, but the girls literally what they did call sowed tobacco. The pay was you could stand at a row. When you get there, the tobacco is no taller than this. So the girls' jobs was to tie that tobacco to a wire that ran down the row so that when it grew, it would not topple over. You wanted it to grow straight up. You could stand at one row and not see the end of it. This is how big the tobacco fields were. And we got paid 10 cents. They called it a bin, which is each row has a section in it of how many pieces of tobacco that can grow. And a section would probably be from that my wall there to this wall here. And you can imagine how many tobacco plants grow within there. And we got 10 cents for that. I averaged $25 a day. I was there to work. And I went to Connecticut for 3 years. My junior year in high school, my senior year in high school, and my freshman year in college to have money to help pay for the expenses of my being in high school and going to college, because my family could not afford to send me without some supplementary support. During those times, I think you did what you needed to do. It was really interesting. I had a conversation with my nephew, and I was telling him that when I was his age, that I had to go away to work in Connecticut. He said, couldn't you have worked at McDonald's? I said, there was no McDonald's. So just to let him know that things were very different then for black teenagers, there were no jobs. There was absolutely nothing for you to do if you wanted to earn extra income. So you went wherever it is you needed to go to do that.
I think I had an outstanding education. Coming from a small rural school in Amherst County, and then going on to Virginia State University to further my education. I never felt behind, because when you got to your campus, here was people coming from all over the United States, and here you were, you know, this little country girl from Amherst County. But our teachers used to stay after school to help us and give us other classes so that we wouldn't be behind anybody when we got to college, if that was our chosen path, because all of the classes that you needed to go to college were not taught during the day. So teachers like Miss Jackson, Mr. Moore, Mr. Davis would stay after school to give us more education, and then they would bring us home in their cars after school was over.
Do you think the arts are important to teach in the public schools?
Yes, indeed. You can reach children through the arts when you can't reach them through the written word. They can excel. I've had students who excelled as artists, and I would find ways to have them. They couldn't do well scoring on tests and so forth, but they could do well if I said, well, you illustrate this for me. Why don't you draw me a picture of something? And they do beautiful work. Mm-hmm. So you touch them, and they might be excellent. They might excel in not only the arts, but in theater. What more to act? We acted when we were growing up because we had to make believe. We didn't have all these fancy toys. We had to make believe, and we made believe as we played with our mud and our stick horses and so forth. I just think that I don't think that life is just physical education and sports, but the whole society seems to have gone. Mm-hmm. Sports seems to take precedence. I say you can play a guitar or a fiddle or whatever when you're old and can hardly move, but you can't play football and you can't play basketball and you can't play soccer, you know. But you can do these things, you know.
When you talk to young people today about your schooling, what do you say to them about where you went to school, and what do you say to them about where they go to school?
Well, when I talk to them, I try to encourage them. Number one, starting now while they're still in school, you know. And then there have been a couple that I've been asking, even this year, are you making any plans? You should have already started applying, you know, applying for school. You can't wait until the last minute. But first of all, to get a foundation, you need to stay in school. You need to listen. You need to listen all you can. Wisdom has to come into this. You know, you just can't say what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do. Somebody's going to always be telling you what to do. And you're going to have to listen. And encourage them to do all they can. And you need an education. You definitely need an education. High school education is not going to take you anywhere. Not going to take you. There was a time that's fine. But you got to have a college education. And you got to go into something that you feel. It doesn't have to be education all the time, but whatever you feel you can succeed in.
I never saw a baseball, football game or a basketball game until I went to college. And Evelyn, Jean, and I, that we were classmates. We said we don't know what to. We were told that we would have to go out and root for the people. And we said, how do we know when to root? Because none of us had ever seen the game, and we didn't know what to root for. And so we decided where we would sit. And when the others got up, we got up. And then I contacted St. Philip's School of Nursing and went there. And after that, I taught there in the School of Nursing. As a matter of fact, I was offered a job before I even took the State Board of Nursing exam. And I was there until, I think, three and a half years.
What did you teach?
I taught medical nursing, that's procedures, pharmacology, and during my last year was obstetrics and pediatrics. And the reason for doing that was the school was ready to close. And I didn't have that much love for either one of those courses, pediatrics and obstetrics. But in order to keep the kids at the school, somebody had to do it, and so I did that. And then I got tired of that, and I went in the military in 1963.
And where were you? Were you a nurse?
A nurse in the Air Force.
And
I
where
was
were you
there
stationed?
for 28 years.
Where were you stationed?
I'm not so sure I can get them all together. I went to Tinker Air Force Base out in Oklahoma. From there I went to Clark Air Force Base in Philippines. Came back, I was at Myrtle Beach. From Myrtle Beach I went to Vietnam. Vietnam I went to Scott Air Force Base up there in Illinois. And from there I went to college and got my master's degree, Teachers College up in New York. And from there I went to Louisiana. And from there I went to Shepherd Air Force Base in Texas. And then over to Korea. And then Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And I went to San Antonio, Texas. I was in charge of all the nursing services type educational programs for the whole Air Force. And from there I went to Keesler and retired.
And when you retired, how did you become a pastor?
Well, I accepted the call when I was down in Mississippi, Keesler. And when I got here, I was attending my own church, it's Piney Grove. And they asked me to come and be interim pastor because the pastor had passed.
Here?
Here, Reverend Parker. And so I came down to, be interim, and I was interim for almost 2 years before they decided to accept me as pastor. And that's it, because I didn't really think that it was going to happen. I wasn't even sure that I was going to college. I just finished. Because after I got out, I went to Virginia Union School of Theology to get to my second master's. And then, but when they had their call meeting and they elected me as their pastor.
So did you get the second master's? Did you finish it?
Oh yeah.
So you're a full colonel with 2 master's degrees.
That's right. And 2 honorary doctoral degrees.
And where are those from?
One is from Virginia University of Lynchburg, and the other one is from Easton, over in Lynchburg.